What's happening, everybody? This your boy Charles Wells, aka C Wells, coming at you with another edition of SWAC Talk, the show where we cover the SWAC inside and out. We're going to talk about the West Division champ UAPB Golden Lions today. But before we do that, I like to do all my little intros and whatnot. You can go ahead and check out the socials, facebook.com/SWACtalk, instagram.com/SWACtalk. Hit up the email, swagtalk76@gmail.com. Um, like I said, you want to show a little love or support to the show, you can hit me up on Cash App at $/SWAG Want to give a special shout out to Christopher Thompson. Christopher Franklin, man. My bad. I'm kind of it's kind of early, so shout out to Christopher Franklin and Desmond Allen, man, for just a special shout out for the love that you guys have been showing me. I really appreciate it. And let's make it do what we do. YouTube channel is here, as you can tell, over 180 subscribers. If you haven't done so already, won't you go ahead and subscribe, please? Like the videos, comment. I love to talk back and forth in the comments. You guys have been doing really good on the comments. I love it. Let's keep that going. Share the videos and hit that notification bell so you can be alerted to any content that I upload. Because now we're gonna be jumping into our fall preview starting Wednesday, so you don't want to miss any episodes that come. Those will be dropping on Wednesdays and Sundays, and then as the season starts, we'll be doing weekly previews and weekly recaps. So you don't want to miss any of that. And anytime something pops up in these YouTube HBCU streets, I'm probably gonna comment on it. So you might get a random video here or there. So you definitely want to check that out. So hit that notification bell so you can be alerted to all of that, because some days something pop in my mind. I'm like, I need to go ahead and put this on video. So you might miss it. So don't miss it. Let's talk about UAPB now. This team was a team who I predicted in 2019 this team was gonna be horrible. I said they were gonna win like 2 games, 3 at the most in 2019, and they went on to win 6 games and beat a surprise team of the conference. They had a huge win at Alabama A&M in 2019, and they got off to a good start. Had a nice last second victory against Tennessee State. Won a few other games. Had a really really explosive offense with Shannon Patrick and Skylar Perry splitting time at quarterback. Ballard, Wilkes, Brown, Miller, Ralph, all those guys at receiver, with a hell of a running back, Taylor Porter, who was a 1,000-yard back in back-to-back seasons. Defense was getting better. 2018, their defense was very young, and they really couldn't cover anybody, but they got better. And this year, in the fall, this year in the spring, they improved even more. They went 4-1 on the season, 4-0 in the conference regular season, 1-0 at home, 3-0 on the road, which is a huge mark. They did have a 1 neutral site loss later in the season. Their season was supposed to start on February 27th against Texas Southern, but as I've said multiple times, that was a crazy winter storm that came through the South, and they had water pressure issues on their campus and also in basically the city of Pine Bluff. So playing a game that Saturday just was not going to be feasible. So that game was pushed back to April 24th, which meant they had to go on the road to play Southern, a place that they haven't had much success. And they came out kind of slow a little bit. Southern led 7-3 at the end of the first quarter, but the second quarter, Pine Bluff would score 23 points. So they gave themselves a really good start to that game in the second quarter. Got Southern out of what they like to do. They held Southern to their lowest rushing total on the year, 134 yards on the ground. And they did force Southern to throw 3 interceptions and also, I think, 1 fumble, so 4 turnovers. And they won that game 31-30 as they withstood a second half rally by Southern to get their first victory over Southern since 2012, which was the last time that they won. The last time that they went to the SWAC Championship was also their first SWAC Championship in years. So that was a huge game for them. They had a bye week on March 13th. March 20th, they went to Grambling, and they beat the brakes off of Grambling 48-21. They got a touchdown early in the game off a pick 6, and they just rolled from there. March 27th, they were supposed to play Alabama State. That game got started, but it ended after a quarter and a half due to weather they were trailing 10-3 in that game. I was really interested to see if they could get that game back under control because Ryan Nettles was starting to kind of put in work on the offense for Alabama State. They looked like they were gonna start to turn it around, but the weather came and that game was ultimately canceled, which led to the April 3rd game at Valley. That's a place that anything can happen when you go up there. Valley led that game 17-3 for a good portion of the game. Pine Bluff was able to come back and tie it up. Valley seemed like they were gonna put themselves in position to win this game. Had the punt. Tyron Ralph returned the punt for a touchdown, giving Pine Bluff the victory 24-17. The game at home on April 17th against Prairie View was a very, very high scoring, explosive game on both offenses. Prairie View came in that game without many running backs, but they were able to stay in that game and give themselves a chance to win late. But Pine Bluff withstood that and got a 36-31 victory at home to set themselves up for a SWAC Championship berth. The game on April 24th against Texas Southern was ultimately canceled, which led to them playing Alabama A&M in the SWAC Championship on May 1st in Jackson. And this was a very, very entertaining game. Pine Bluff got the lead in the first half. They got a fumble return for a touchdown. The offense was clicking. Second half, A&M was able to get their offense going, kind of like they did against Alabama State, where A&M was able to start hitting those big plays in the second half. But Pine Bluff still stayed steady. They were able to sack Glass a couple times and make him uncomfortable, but he still was able to make plays when needed. Pine Bluff just could not get the big play at the end to win, and they ultimately lost 40-33. This was a really good season for them. Obviously to not be considered to be a factor in the division race and to win it is always a good thing. When that running game as a team was not that good. Skylar Perry with the leader rusher here at 52 carries for 216 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their running backs didn't honestly do a great job. Clark and Allen, they both went for over 150 yards apiece, but their yards per carry were both very low, 2.8 for Clark and 3.6 for Allen. So not a good job of actually getting a consistent running game from the running backs, but they did a good enough job to kind of alleviate some of that pressure, but they ran for 119 yards a team, and that's just not good no matter how you look at it. But the passing game was solid. Perry, obviously, he did a good job this year in his second full year as a starter because he started most of his freshman season in 2018. He split time with Shannon Patrick in 2019. But this year, the job was his. He was 102 of 178, 57% completion, 1,236 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. So not, pretty solid numbers. This team offensively was middle of the pack in pretty much everything. Between 4th and 5th in every category. They are 4th in scoring offense. The receivers, Wilkes, Ballard, and Ralph, they each had over 20 receptions, 25 for Wilkes, 23 for Ballard, 24 for Ralph. All of them over 300 yards, 341 for Wilkes, 313 for Ballard, 307 for Ralph. Each of them over 12 yards per catch. Wilkes 6 touchdowns, Ballard 3, Ralph 1. DeJuan Miller is another guy who's a capable receiving target. Jeremy Brown also is a guy who can make some plays at receiver. But defensively, this team was very good. They were very opportunistic. They led the league with 6 interceptions. With 8 interceptions on the season. Jalen Thigpen had 5 interceptions himself. Isaac Peppers was a beast on the defensive line. He had 7.5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. They actually led the league in sacks with 21, 2 more than Southern, who gets most of the hype as a defensive front with their attack. But Pine Bluff's defensive line was very good. Like I said, 21 sacks as a defense, 55 tackles for loss as a defense. So 59 tackles for loss as a defense. So they definitely did a good job of making plays in the backfield as a defense. And when they forced teams to throw the ball, they did a good job of picking it off. Jalen Thigpen, like I said, 5 interceptions by himself, which was more than most SWAC teams had as a complete team this spring. So he was definitely a guy who you tested, then you really failed that test. They actually led the league in rushing defense, so that's another good mark. And this is a defense that year by year has gotten better. That 2018 defense was they were young, and a lot of guys who were playing should not have been playing at that point. If you remember, if you don't remember, they got beat like 90-6 by South Dakota State that year. Everybody torched them in the air, but they stayed the course, and then they continued to grow. Doc Gamble did a really good job as a first year head coach. Um, Having your first game on the road in a tough environment to have your guys up and ready and actually be the aggressors for most of that game as a first time head coach is definitely a good mark. The fact that they had no letdown coming off of a big win like that in a short season where you don't know week by week what your season is gonna do is another good mark. Like I said, I was very impressed with the way he handled himself as a head coach. That was my one negative on them coming into the season. I didn't know how he would handle himself being a first time head coach, but he definitely did a good job of maintaining that team and keeping them focused week in and week out, and coming to play week in and week out, and actually being in position to win that championship, not just make it there, but they came up short, but they were in position to win. So you can't ask for much more from a guy who came in his first year as a head coach in a situation like he came in, um, kind of helter skelter, not knowing that the coach was going to leave for another job, and he did, which put them kind of in a situation where they had to scramble to get things going. But this team is going to be an interesting team coming into the fall. And like I said, we'll talk about that more in depth when we get to Pine Bluff in our fall previews. But they've lost a few important guys to the portal, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they replace those guys. And it's going to be interesting to see if Pine Bluff can maintain success, because whenever Pine Bluff had a successful season, and by a successful season I mean a SWAC championship berth, they have followed the next year up with a bad season. 2006, they went to the SWAC championship game and they slid for a few years after that. 2012, they won the SWAC championship, and 2006 2006 they won the SWAC championship, and then they slid after that. 2012 they won the SWAC championship, and they dropped off the cliff the very next year, and they didn't come back up until 2019. So it's going to be important for them to handle success long term and continue to make things happen. So they're going to be a team that I'm going to have as a wild card coming into the season. It's going to be one of those interesting things. Can they be a contender? Because this 2021 SWAC season, East and West is going to be a beast. So we'll see how they handle that. That's going to do it for our Pine Bluff recap. As I said, stay tuned for Wednesday. We'll start our fall 2021 season preview with the defending SWAC champ Alabama A&M Bulldogs. And I'm so excited for this fall 2021 season. I've been saying, other people have been saying, that this is probably the most important SWAC season in I don't know how long. This is one of the first years in years that all eyes are on the SWAC, like Tupac. So we have a lot to prove. Everybody has a lot to prove. Every team on this board has a lot to prove. Everybody has the opportunity to make waves nationally and just in conference. So this is probably, to me, one of the bigger seasons, and probably one of the better opportunities to have seasons with a lot of successful teams to be able to climb high in the rankings if possible. Probably as far as multiple teams in the rankings, probably since the 90s, man. It's been a long time, like people have said, the SWAC's been up and down. They're on an upswing now. The mid 2000s, the league was kind of stagnant with that 9-game mandate. The late 90s was probably the SWAC's apex. When you had teams like Jackson, Southern, Alcorn, Grambling, although Grambling was kind of down in the late 90s, but all those teams had successful teams in the 90s, and Jackson made a couple trips to the playoffs, Alcorn made a couple trips to the playoffs, Southern and Grambling were routinely in the Heritage Bowl all the time in that time period. So that's this could be decade. You know, this could be that kind of time period where multiple SWAC teams all winning games out of conference and winning, you know, and making headlines. So it's been a long time since we've had that kind of success as a conference, and it's out there for everybody to go get. It's just up to everybody to do it themselves. Um, one program can only set the bar so much. Everybody else has to get over it themselves. You know, everything that Dion's doing at Jackson is definitely a bonus, but for the league to grow, everybody has to carry their own weight. You can't just let one team carry it. If that's the case, then the SWAC is still not going to be where they need to be. So everybody has to do their own thing. Everybody has to get themselves to where they want to go, and you know, not just have one team carrying the banner and everybody else kind of following behind. So it's gonna if everybody can lift their own weight, then this league is definitely gonna be great. If that doesn't happen, then it's gonna be a disappointment, honestly. So, you know, we'll talk about that at another time. You know, everybody else out here is kind of covering those topics pretty well. So I just want to sign out and salute everybody who's out here on YouTube doing their thing, because even, you know, 2019, 2020, obviously there was no season, but finding HBCU SWAC content was very, very hard on YouTube, other than, you know, a guy like Alex Hine who was posting videos and like HBCU Game Day, channels like that. But to be able to see, you know, anybody talking about anything SWAC football was few and far in between. So I definitely salute everybody for doing what they're doing and keep up the work. You know, everybody's inspiring everybody to be better. And, you know, I'm very, very appreciative of that. So with that being said, I'm your boy C. Wells. I'm signing out. We'll be back on Wednesday as we talk Bulldog football for the fall 2021 season. Man, these recaps are over. I'm done. Let's get out.